Hey there, it's Michael with BlackBeltProject.com, and we're continuing our series of the Black Belt GTD setup that I've got. And the next area that I wanted to talk about was your reference filing. Now, he spends a lot of time in his book talking about A to Z filing, and I think that's the way to go. I would also do one additional component to how he has his A to Z setup in his reference. I would add a chronological file kind of in front of your A to Z. So in my filing system, I have the A to Z, so for any kind of folder that I need to make, I do that. I put it in my A to Z setup. For a lot of things, I know I could make a folder for, my electric bill, and I could have it in my A to Z file, and all my electric bills go in there. Personally, I don't know why I keep my electric bill, except for tax purposes, but outside of that, I probably will never reference my chronological or my A to Z file for my utility bills, for example. So what I suggest that you do is have a second category in your A to Z system outside and maybe in front of it, because you're going to access a lot more, and you could even have its own drawer. Then what you would do is anything that you get in, the bill you've paid, receipt, that a lot of those things don't need their own separate files. So I sort those chronologically, and as they come in, I just put them in the back. And every time something new comes in that's been processed that doesn't need its own A to Z file, but I think, I might want to keep that, then I put it in the chronological file. You could take this a step further and divide your chronological file into two separate components. One, things you might need for tax purposes chronologically, and then maybe one for things that you think you might need but you don't necessarily feel like you need to have a file for. Now, in the front of my A to Z system, I have set up by the month, January through December, and so that's where I put those. And I've noticed over time that I could really probably break it down by the quarter and just have 4, but right now I still have 12 files that I do that with. As far as reference goes, obviously you're going to need to have a set of files. Now, I use regular manila folders for my A to Z system, and for projects I use a different color, and then that way I can identify right away that that's a project that I'm working on if I'd happen to have a file out. And in addition to that, I know everybody knows that you got to have a labeler. That does make your files look fantastic, as opposed to just having them written down. Plus, they're easier to read when you're looking in the A to Z setup. So definitely got to get yourself a labeler. In addition to the other reference areas, I also have a database of several things that are, like client lists, prospects I need to call. So databases are also a reference too, and so you want to make sure that you also have that kind of reference set up for yourself. If you're going to have any kind of contact management, particularly if you're in sales, the A to Z reference system doesn't really do it for you. You're going to have the additional setup of a database. Now, I know he mentions this in the book, but I think that it's worth pointing out that your database is an important reference tool for you. I know I use mine all the time, and on a simple basis, it's just your contacts, names and addresses and phone numbers, and you can keep that so that it syncs with your phone. But I would definitely make sure that you include that. Now, personally, I think that's got to be digital, and the reason I think that is because everybody's names and addresses and emails change so often that if you keep it in a Rolodex or whatever, you're constantly changing it, and it just looks a lot neater if you do it in a database format. So that's my segment on reference files and how I have mine set up. And be sure and go over to my website, BlackBeltProject.com, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.